So, the news coming out of Russia and Ukraine just keeps getting worse and worse and scarier. So now we get this. NATO will begin military drills practicing the use of Europe's nuclear bombs on Monday after Putin warned direct clashes with Russia would spark a global catastrophe. NATO's steadfast noon routine October exercise will see up to 60 aircrafts take part in training flights. The nuclear drills do not involve live bombs and were not linked to current world events, according to NATO. NATO's Oana Lungescu said the exercise helps ensure nuclear deterrent remains safe, secure, and effective. This came as Vladimir Putin said today that direct clashes with Russia would spark a global catastrophe. The Russian president spoke today from Astana, Kazakhstan, after a meeting between ex-Soviet allied states. He said his mobilization was getting close to achieving its target of calling up 300,000 new troops. Okay, so now they say, look, this is just routine. This is not linked to world events. Well, pretty fucking shitty timing, if you ask me. Pretty shitty timing. Here's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of, like, the same thing that happened remember this? This happened the other week with Japan and North Korea. North Korea did this practice military drill, this missile launch, and it went over Japan. And there was a 5-minute window there where everybody in Japan thought they were being attacked by North Korea. There were sirens and alarms going off everywhere in Japan, and people were hiding. People were terrified. There was, it was like a everybody take cover type announcement that was released by the government. And, everybody's on eggshells and everybody's terrified. And what happens in a situation like that? What happens in a fog of war type situation where, God forbid, some of these decisions are like automated. And if an automated system is convinced, hey, we're under attack, then it retaliates. Or if you have somebody who's in control, who is along the chain of command, who got rattled too easy and decided to jump the gun and react. I mean, this is world-altering stuff we're talking about here. This is terrifying stuff we're talking about here. So, and this is something that you see all the time with the NATO drills in particular, is they do tend to always downplay everything they do and define everything as defensive. So even when there's like a NATO buildup on Russia's border, they say, well, this is just standard operating procedure and we're just doing our normal drills and we're just... Okay, even if that's true, can you not see how, from the other perspective, they might think, holy fucking shit, this is offensive. Maybe they're going to come after us. Oh my God, we're terrified, right? So all it takes is one misstep, one little bit of miscommunication, and then it's like, we're off to the races. And, it's the nuclear age. This is not something we can afford to fuck around with. Now, at the same time that NATO is doing nuclear drills, guess what? Just got news last night. Vladimir Putin is currently escalating again. He's sending thousands of troops into Belarus for what many experts are saying is a potential new offensive against Kyiv. So he failed to take Kyiv early on. It looks like he's going to try to take Kyiv again. It strikes me as some semblance of desperation, since, of course, Ukraine has made many gains on the ground. In reaction to Ukraine making gains on the ground and the bridge getting bombed, the Crimean bridge, the bridge from Russia to Crimea, that being bombed, Putin launched about 80 missiles at targets all around Ukraine. We covered that the other day. Now gearing up for a new offensive in Kyiv. I know it sounds, like you've heard this a million times before, but the words matter. Like, this means something. We truly are on the path towards some sort of direct conflict between the West and Russia, and that's World War III. And it's not long until the nukes are in the air once you're at that point. I know people seem to have this weird false sense of security where they feel like, no, that'll never happen. Why? Why do you say that? How long ago was World War II was in the lifetime of many of you watching right now, your grandparents. These motherfuckers were alive for Adolf Hitler doing the Holocaust. The idea that we've reached the end of history and everything's stable now, it's bullshit. It's nonsense. Things are just as chaotic, just as extreme, just as crazy as they've ever fucking been. And now we're a bunch of monkeys with nuclear weapons. So I'm afraid of the miscommunication, I'm afraid of the escalation, and we need to get off this track. Now, it's a difficult question, right? It's foreign policy and diplomacy, it's complex. There's so many moving parts to it, there's so many different concerns to take into consideration. It is difficult to do this right, if you can even do it right. I always say we're going for the least bad of all bad options, right? But you have to sit down, there has to be a negotiation, there has to be diplomacy, you have to find a way off. You have to find a way to break this escalatory cycle. And, you know, I totally sympathize with the Ukrainian perspective of we were illegally and offensively invaded by an imperialist nation. So no deal. Under any circumstance, we're going to fight to defend every inch of Ukrainian territory. And if that's their prerogative, that's their prerogative. Okay. But we've already given them $70 billion worth of weapons. I think it's fair to say, okay, go ahead, do your thing with the $7 billion worth of weapons. But we are going to put on the table a peace proposal. And if you want to reject it, okay, but do it at your own peril. We're not going to be, the sugar daddy forever here, right? And so send a message. Sit down with Putin. And you guys can check out I did a whole thing on Crystal Kyle and Friends, what I think is the least bad of all bad options for a potential peace proposal. Just know, if you are upset at even the discussion of any kind of negotiation or diplomacy or peace proposal, I'd argue you're part of the problem. Because it's so easy to just sit there and become entrenched in the sides and say, I think Putin's acting purely defensively, or I think, Ukraine should fight for every last inch of land and to the last man. You don't realize you're rolling the dice with nuclear annihilation for millions of people. So, for the love of God, stop the escalatory cycle. And the funny thing is, this is usually, in my experience with my decade plus of doing commentary online, political commentary online, usually like the pro-peace position is popular. This is a rare instance where it's like, people look at you like you're crazy if you're like, hey, let's try to reach some sort of peace deal. And I think that's crazy. We have to try to do it, even if ultimately it's a peace deal, it's a proposal that ends up failing. It fundamentally was appeasement. Russia disregards it within a year or two and tries to take a new territory. At least we got an extra 2 years before nuclear annihilation. So, for the love of God, we got to end this crazy shit. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.